I'm gonna paint a picture for you and I want you to guess which US state I'm describing. Ready? Okay, imagine rhinos grazing under acacia-like trees, herds of three-toed deer splashing through a watering hole, and crane-like birds taking off in a cloud of dust. I know this sounds something more akin to Africa, but which US state do you think it actually is describing? It's a little bit of a trick question because this describes a state as it was 12 million years ago, and this would actually be Nebraska. And my goodness, so many of you recommended looking into this after my other Nebraska video. And I'm so glad you recommended it because this is a fascinating story. These prehistoric Cornhuskers were actually witness to something a lot of us fear today, which is the eruption of the Yellowstone hotspot. But before we get into that apocalyptic scene, let's go back just a little bit in time. Before it was home to Huskers games and runzas, the state of Nebraska looked more like the set of The Lion King. In the Miocene, about 12 million years ago, the state was a warm expanse of savanna with scattered trees, predators lurking near water, and thick herds of tasty herbivores munching on the grass of the rolling hills. No cows, no bison, and the only similar residents to what you might see there today were horses and deer. Except most of the horses had 3 toes, and the deer were saber-toothed deer. Quite different from the ones you might see today. And the one-toed horses that were there would look more like zebras, and likely hung out with camels that looked more like giraffes and llamas. And there were also barrel-bodied rhinos, and a lot of them. And all of these animals were living in what seemed like a paradise until one day ash started falling from the sky. And the source of that ash, you guessed it, was the Yellowstone hotspot. And the Yellowstone hotspot right now is a famous national park to visit and look at bubbling mud with 200 other tourists. But 12 million years ago, there were no tourists, and the park actually would have been closer to southern Idaho. And this is because the entire continent was moving southwest over the hotspot. So the volcano would have been an Idahoan at the time it erupted. This eruption was so large that it would have dwarfed any eruption any human has ever seen, at least in recorded history. Bigger than Mount St. Helens, bigger than Mount Pelee, or even Pompeii. And this isn't the kind of eruption you would see in Hawaii either, with flowing basaltic lavas. It was a highly silicic, super sticky magma that created an explosive caldera-forming eruption that ultimately darkened the skies and dusted ash over North America. And because of the direction of the jet stream, mainly blanketed everything to the east with ash. Closer to the volcano, the ash was actually thicker and grittier, but in Nebraska, or prehistoric Nebraska, it was a lot finer, so more like talcum powder, which is great for a baby's butt, but not good to breathe in because volcanic ash is actually little shards of volcanic glass. So when you breathe it in, it effectively slices up your lungs, which unfortunately is exactly what happened to the animals that lived in Nebraska at the time. So going back to this savanna-like expanse in Nebraska, all of the animals I described earlier started seeing this rain of ash. So it wasn't necessarily a giant dump of ash that covered them and buried them immediately. It was a slow, relentless trickle of ash falling from the sky that they continued to breathe in and ultimately killed vegetation that a lot of them relied on for food. And some scientists actually suggested that it took upwards of a month for these animals to die. And in present-day Nebraska, it's at Ashfall Fossil Bed State Historical Park that you can actually see this very scene unfolding at one of the most pristine mammal fossil beds in the world. The scene painted by this fossil bed suggests that many of these animals were looking for comfort and food, which is why they were there, because this was actually a watering hole. How do we know it's a watering hole? There are actually small ripples left in the ash at the site. And it paints a picture of rhinos standing shoulder to shoulder while horses stomped in volcanic mud. And even bone-crushing dogs ran by looking to scavenge a recently fallen animal. And even after every animal at this watering hole took its last breath, the ash kept falling. And layer by layer, these were perfectly preserved in place. But let's jump forward to 1971, when the remains of this apocalyptic scene were first discovered. A paleontologist named Mike Voorhies was out for a walk the day after a rainstorm. A serendipitous time to go for a walk because the rain did what rain does best. It eroded part of a gully wall and exposed the remains of a young rhino. And this wasn't just a bone. This was a fully intact small rhino. The whole kit and caboodle. And it wasn't alone. And this paleontologist spearheaded an effort to continue discoveries of more animals. An excavation actually revealed dozens of animals at this site, all perfectly preserved, still positioned exactly as they died. And today, a giant rhino barn actually covers this site because one rainfall could wipe out the perfect detail that still exists at this site. So while the Ashfall State Park may seem like it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, it's a special insight into multiple Earth processes colliding at once. Plate tectonics driving a volcano across a continent. Volcanic ash shaping ecosystems, and life in a savanna dramatically changing in the blink of an eye. So the next time you worry about the Yellowstone hotspot erupting, remember, it actually already has. And in Nebraska, you can walk into a building to see dozens of animals that were actually witness to it. If you enjoyed this journey from Earth's crust to the creatures that used to walk on it, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.